Why do the most ambitious and even cruel people seem to dominate the world, while the most honest and talented often remain on the sidelines watching from afar? You must have asked yourself this at some point. And if you're here, it's because you want answers. If merit and justice were truly the pillars of society, the top would be occupied by the wisest and most virtuous. But that's not how the game of power works. Nietzsche understood this better than anyone. He saw the dynamics behind the rise of a powerful and exposed an uncomfortable secret. The values we are taught to follow, actually a mechanism to keep us submissive. If you've ever felt frustrated watching unscrupulous people triumph while the righteous suffer, it's time to understand why the worst people reach the top. From an early age, we are taught to believe that success is a direct consequence of talent, effort, and morality. Work hard, be honest, follow the rules, and you will be rewarded. But then we grow up and notice something strange. The smartest or most dedicated are not always the ones who reach the top. In fact, more often than not, it is the shrewdest, the ruthless, and even the dishonest who take control. Think about how many companies are run by mediocre leaders while brilliant minds remain stagnant. How many politicians are elected not for their ability to govern, but for their talent in lying with charisma. Nietzsche saw this contradiction and challenged the idea of a just and meritocratic order. To him, the world was not governed by a scale that weighs virtues and distributes rewards proportionally. What truly determines someone's rise is not how much they deserve it, but how willing they are to play the game of power without hesitation. And this game has rules that are very different from what we usually imagine. It does not necessarily reward the most capable, but rather those who understand the psychology of domination, who know how to exploit the weaknesses of others, and who do not hesitate to impose their will. Often the most talented people lose precisely because they believe that their talent alone will be enough. They wait for recognition, when in reality, the world responds far more to boldness than to competence. If the top were a place reserved only for the most virtuous, the history of humanity would be entirely different. But there is a relentless logic that governs power, and nature helps us understand it. If there is something nature understood like few others, it is that power is not achieved merely through talent or justice. It is a game, and a brutal one. Those who rise to the top are not necessarily the ones with the best ideas or who work the hardest, but those who understand the hidden rules of this game and are willing to use them without hesitation. At the core of this dynamic is the will to power, an essential concept for nature. Unlike the simple desire to survive, the will to power is the force that drives individuals to expand their dominance over the world. For some, this means creating, innovating, and pushing boundaries. For others, it means manipulating, subjugating, and eliminating competitors. History is full of examples of figures who were neither the brightest nor the most ethical, but who possessed an unshakable determination to exert power over others. Look around. Politicians, CEOs, religious leaders, most of them are people driven by this intense will to assert their position. They are not afraid to manipulate, to crush obstacles, to turn any situation into an opportunity. These people understand something that many ignore. Power is not given, it is taken, and to take it, being good or just, is not enough. You must know how to impose your will, resist criticism, and understand that many times the morality we are taught is a trap, while some hesitate, trapped in the belief that recognition will come naturally. Those who reach the top act with strategy, and if necessary, without mercy. Nietzsche did not necessarily see this as something bad, but as a fact of life. He understood that the struggle for power is an inherent characteristic of existence, and that ignoring it makes us easy prey for those who are not afraid to play the game. But there is a crucial difference between playing to dominate and playing to create something great. To understand this difference, we need to look at one of Nietzsche's most provocative concepts: Throughout history, two fundamental forms of morality have emerged: master morality and slave morality. Understanding this distinction is essential to grasp why certain people dominate while others submit. Master morality is the morality of strength, of asserting one's own will, of creating values based on excellence, courage, and greatness. For those who follow this morality, the world is not a place where one seeks approval or waits for justice to be granted. The master imposes his vision, takes what he desires, and does not ask for permission to exist. Fully slave morality, on the other hand, is born from resentment. Those who lack power, the weak, the repressed, the resentful create immorality that turns their impotence into virtue. They come to believe that submission is noble, that suffering is a sign of spiritual superiority, and that the powerful are inherently evil. Instead of seeking power, they demonize it. Instead of striving for growth, they condemn. Those who grow nature saw this inversion of values as one of civilization's greatest tragedies. Over time, slave morality spread and became the foundation of Western culture. We came to value obedience, forced humility, and purposeless sacrifice, while despising those who dare to assert their own greatness. As a result, many believe that being good means being passive, that being just means accepting injustices, that seeking power is something dirty. But nature warns that this belief is precisely what keeps us weak, while those who follow master morality take the world for themselves. Those who follow slave morality live waiting for justice to fall from the sky. The problem is, as we've already seen, the world does not operate that way, and those who understand this dynamic become the true rulers. But what, in practice, separates those who reach the top from those who remain in submission? What separates those who dominate from those who are dominated? Is it merely a matter of intelligence, luck, or privilege? Nature would say no. The true difference lies in mentality. Those who reach the top have a specific way of seeing the world and themselves, a psychology that naturally inclines them toward power first. They do not seek approval, while most people fear displeasing others. Dominators do not care about being loved. They want to be respected. They know that trying to please everyone is a sign of weakness, and that the relentless pursuit of acceptance often paralyzes action. Second, they understand that reality does not reward the most just, but the most determined. For these individuals, there is no room for victimhood. If the game of power requires boldness, strategy, and sometimes a certain degree of coldness, they accept this reality rather than deny it. Moreover, dominators have a keen instinct for detecting weaknesses. They know that most people act out of fear of rejection, failure, exclusion, and they use this to their advantage. They do not bind themselves to moral rules that limit them, but to the rules that work within the game they are playing. But this raises an important question. Where does justice fit into all of this? If dominators are those who disregard traditional values, is expecting the world to be fair nothing more than an illusion? Believing that the world is just is one of the biggest traps a person can fall into. Nature saw this belief as a dangerous illusion because it causes many to remain passive, waiting for justice to prevail one day. But reality is different. The world does not distribute rewards according to moral merit, and those who expect to be recognized simply for being a good person often end up disappointed. The idea of justice, as we were taught, often serves as a mechanism of control. We are told that if we follow the rules, if we are patient and virtuous, life will reward us. But while some wait, others take what they want. The most successful people understand that justice, when it exists, is not an absolute principle of reality, but something that must be created and imposed. Nietzsche believed that those who see this truth gain a brutal advantage over others. They do not waste time complaining about what is right or wrong within a system that was already designed to benefit those at the top. Instead, they seek to understand The rules of the game, as they truly are, play to win. This does not mean that all forms of morality are irrelevant or that we should abandon any sense of ethics if the game of power favors the most ruthless. Does this mean that being ethical and reaching the top are incompatible, or is there an alternative? Rules of the game, as they truly are, play to win. This does not mean that all forms of morality are irrelevant or that we should abandon any sense of ethics if the game of power favors the most ruthless. Does this mean that being ethical and reaching the top are incompatible, or is there an alternative path? This is the great ethical dilemma. Many believe that the only way to win in this world is to play dirty, manipulating, stepping over others, and ignoring any moral principles. But is that really the only way? Nietzsche did not advocate corruption or gratuitous cruelty. What he criticized was false morality, the kind born out of fear and submission, not genuine strength. He believed that a true leader is not simply someone who exploits others, but someone who uses their will, creatively expanding their power without lowering themselves to petty games. The real question is not about choosing between being good or evil, but between being strong or weak. Those who reach power without corruption are the ones who understand the rules of the game but play differently. They do not become easy prey, but they also do not lose themselves in cynicism. Instead of waiting for the world to recognize them, they create their own path without fear of challenging, but also without the need to destroy for destruction's sake. So how can someone play this game without losing their soul? Is there a balance between power and integrity? The answer is yes. If power belongs to those who dare to take it, that does not mean everyone must become cold and calculating. Not necessarily. There is a way to play the game without losing oneself in it, but this requires clarity, strategy, and a deep understanding of oneself. The first step is to abandon the illusion that being merely good is enough. Integrity does not lie in blindly following imposed rules, but in acting according to one's own will to power, that inner force that drives creation, growth, and autonomy. Instead of rejecting power as something dirty, it must be claimed consciously without falling into resentment or passivity. The second step is to develop an anti-fragile mindset. This means not being shaken by the fear of rejection or the desire for acceptance. Those who are afraid to displease will never lead. Those who seek approval above all else will always be manipulated by those who have no such restraints. Finally, it is essential to choose your own values. Nietzsche did not advocate that everyone should be ruthless, but rather that each person should be strong enough to create and sustain their own path. If you want power without losing your soul, you must define your purpose, your vision, and then play to win, but without becoming a copy of those you despise. The world will not change its rules just because you wish it to, but that does not mean you have to play the game the same way as others. There is a difference between being dominated and choosing your own destiny. Nietzsche showed that power is not a matter of justice or merit, but of will and strategy. By understanding this, we stop being mere spectators and start acting consciously without waiting for the world to grant us permission. But this does not mean we must become cynical or abandon all sense of integrity. The true challenge is not just to attain power, but to do so without losing the essence of who we truly are. The practice of constant self-reflection helps us question our values, understand our true motivations, and reject ready-made truths. Take notes on your daily decisions, observe where you are limiting yourself, and reflect on what you truly want to build. Additionally, strengthen your emotional resilience. The path to the top is not comfortable, and those who fear discomfort will never reach it. Learn to handle criticism, rejection, and challenges without being shaken. This does not mean becoming so hardened that you lose empathy, but rather developing an inner strength that prevents you from being easily knocked down. Finally, remember, power itself is neither good nor evil. It merely reveals who you truly are if you wish to achieve something great without being corrupted. The key is not to reject the game, but to play it with awareness. If you enjoyed this content and want to understand more about life's questions, subscribe to the channel and share this video with others who are also among the awakened.